The massive Imperial flagship Eternal Dawn hung in space like a silver knife against the black canvas of stars. Its polished hull stretched 20 kilometers from bow to stern, dwarfing the small human diplomatic vessel that approached its docking bay. The Empire's ship designers had made sure their vessels would inspire awe in any species that saw them. Admiral James Green stood at the viewport of his shuttle, his weathered face reflecting in the reinforced glass. He wore the simple black uniform of Earth's United Defense Force, decorated only with 3 silver stars on each shoulder. Unlike the elaborate uniforms of the Empire's officials, human military dress had remained practical and understated throughout the centuries. "They're hailing us again, sir," said the pilot. "The Empire's dockmaster seems annoyed we're not using their automated landing system." Green allowed himself a small smile. "Keep manual control. We're not linking our systems with theirs, no matter how much they complain." The shuttle glided into the massive docking bay, where rows of Imperial guards stood in perfect formation. Their armor gleamed under the bright lights, each soldier carrying what looked like ceremonial weapons, but were actually highly advanced plasma rifles. The Empire loved to showcase its power, even during diplomatic meetings. As Green stepped onto the Imperial deck, he noticed how the artificial gravity felt slightly stronger than Earth standard. Another small show of dominance, making visitors feel just a little heavier, a little more uncomfortable. Lord Rex, the Imperial commander, waited at the end of the honor guard line. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, his blue-tinted skin stretched over sharp facial features that were common among the Empire's ruling species. His uniform bore so many medals and decorations that it looked more like armor than cloth. "Admiral Green," Rex said, his universal translator making his words sound artificially smooth. "Welcome aboard the pride of the Imperial fleet. I trust your journey through our territory was enlightening." Green nodded politely, knowing full well that the Empire had deliberately routed their shuttle past their largest military installations. "Very impressive, Lord Rex. Though I noticed you've concentrated your 3rd Fleet around the Arcturus sector, quite far from your usual patrol routes." A flash of surprise crossed Rex's features before he could hide it. The 3rd Fleet's movement was supposed to be classified information. "You are well informed, Admiral. Though I hope you understand that military matters need not cloud our discussion of Earth's integration into the Empire." They walked through corridors lined with artwork depicting Imperial victories. Each painting showed alien races bowing before Imperial might. Green noticed there were exactly 300 such images, one for each species the Empire had peacefully absorbed into their domain. 300 worlds, 300 victories, Rex said, following Green's gaze. "Soon, Earth will have its own place on these walls, a celebration of your civilization joining our grand alliance." Green stopped walking. "That's why I'm here, Lord Rex, to prevent a terrible mistake." Rex turned, his expression a mixture of amusement and confusion. "Mistake? Admiral, perhaps you don't understand. The Empire doesn't make mistakes. We have perfected the art of cultural integration over 10,000 years. Every species eventually sees the wisdom of joining us." "And if they don't?" Green asked quietly. "Then they are helped to understand," Rex replied, his tone hardening slightly. "But such measures are rarely necessary. Most races recognize the benefits of Imperial protection once they understand their position in the galaxy." Green reached into his pocket and removed a small data crystal. "Before we proceed with the formal meeting, I'd like you to review this information. It's a brief history of human warfare." Rex waved his hand dismissively. "Admiral, we have studied your conflicts. Primitive atomic weapons, orbital defense systems, planetary shields, all technologies we mastered millennia ago." "No," Green said, his voice carrying a weight that made Rex pause. "You've seen our weapons. You haven't seen our wars. There's a difference that your Empire has never understood, and I'm trying to help you avoid learning it the hard way." The data crystal gleamed under the bright lights of the Imperial corridor, looking impossibly small and fragile against the backdrop of the Empire's might. Yet in that tiny crystal lay the violent history of humanity, a species that had never known true peace, that had spent its entire existence preparing for threats both real and imagined. "Watch it, Lord Rex," Green said softly, "and then decide if you really want to add Earth to your collection of paintings." The Imperial conference room buzzed with quiet conversation as the holographic display flickered to life. Lord Rex sat at the head of the long table, surrounded by his advisors and military commanders. Admiral Green stood calmly beside the projector, waiting for the murmurs to die down. "What you're about to see," Green began, "is humanity's darkest century. We call it World War II and its aftermath." The hologram showed cities reduced to ash by conventional bombs. Then came the mushroom clouds over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Several Imperial officers shifted uncomfortably in their seats as the reality of atomic warfare played out before them. "Primitive weapons," one of the Imperial scientists declared, though his voice wavered slightly. "We developed clean fusion bombs thousands of years ago." Green nodded. "Yes, you did. After achieving spaceflight, after meeting other species, after having enemies you could see coming from light years away." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We did it while trapped on one world, fighting ourselves." The next images showed the Cold War arms race. Countless missiles pointed at countless cities, enough firepower to destroy Earth's surface several times over. The Imperial delegation watched as humanity built and stored weapons that could have ended their own existence. "Madness," Lord Rex muttered. "Your species nearly destroyed itself." "No," Green corrected him. "We nearly destroyed ourselves because we thought someone else might try to destroy us first. There's a difference." The hologram shifted to show modern Earth's defenses, hidden bunkers in every mountain range, underwater bases that could survive nuclear winter, orbital platforms disguised as communication satellites. "For 500 years after we discovered nuclear weapons, we prepared," Green continued. "Not for aliens. We hadn't met any yet. We prepared because we knew what we were capable of, and we assumed any other intelligent life would be capable of the same." Lord Rex leaned forward. "You speak of paranoia as if it's a virtue, Admiral." "We speak of preparation as survival," Green replied. He pressed a button, and the hologram showed Earth's first contact protocols. "When we detected your Empire's signals 50 years ago, do you know what humanity did?" The Imperial leaders watched as the recording showed massive construction projects beneath Earth's surface, weapon factories built inside asteroids, training programs for soldiers to fight in zero gravity. "You built weapons before even meeting us?" an Imperial general asked, his translator barely hiding his outrage. "You prepared for war against a civilization you knew nothing about." Green's expression remained neutral. "We prepared for every possibility. War was just one of them. Did you notice that we also built translation matrices, cultural exchange centers, diplomatic training facilities?" He gestured at the hologram. "But yes, we prepared for war. Because that's what humans do." The next images showed human military exercises, soldiers training to fight in every environment imaginable. Desert, Arctic, underwater, zero gravity. Ships practicing maneuvers that seemed to break the laws of physics. "Your empire has conquered 300 species," Green said quietly. "Each of them was alone when you found them. Each was unprepared. Each had developed technology in a logical, peaceful progression." He turned off the hologram. "Humanity's progress has never been logical or peaceful." Lord Rex stood up, his tall frame casting a shadow across the table. "Are you threatening the Empire, Admiral Green?" "No," Green replied. "I'm warning you. There's a difference." He placed another data crystal on the table. "This contains records of every major human conflict, every strategy we've developed, every countermeasure we've prepared. I'm giving it to you freely." "Why?" Rex demanded. "Because if you decide to add Earth to your collection," Green said, gesturing at the artwork-lined walls, "I want you to understand exactly what you're getting into." Humanity doesn't want war, Lord Rex. We've seen too much of it. But if war comes, he let the sentence hang unfinished. The room fell silent. For the first time in Imperial history, their leadership faced a species that didn't fear war because it might come, but had spent centuries preparing for it because they believed it was inevitable. Review the records, Green said as he walked toward the door. Then decide if having Earth's painting on your wall is worth the cost of putting it there. 3 days after Admiral Green's warning, the Imperial War Council made their decision. Lord Rex stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, watching as his fleet moved into position around Mars. The red planet hung in space like a rust-colored jewel, its surface dotted with human colonies. A simple show of force, Rex announced to his officers. We'll destroy one small outpost. The humans will understand their position, and Admiral Green's posturing will be exposed as empty threats. The tactical officer looked up from his console. My lord, we've selected Mining Colony 7. Population 300. Minimal defenses detected. Rex nodded, a thin smile crossing his blue-tinted face. Perfect. Prepare the main guns. Let's show humanity what real power looks like. The Eternal Dawn's weapon systems hummed to life, joined by 5 other Imperial cruisers. Their combined firepower could crack a small moon. Against a mining colony, it was absolute overkill. Exactly the message Rex wanted to send. Sir, the sensor officer called out, I'm detecting some unusual energy readings from the surface. Rex waved his hand dismissively. Their primitive shields activating, no doubt. Proceed with the attack. The first Imperial ships fired. Brilliant beams of energy lanced toward the Martian surface, enough power to vaporize the entire mining complex. But halfway to their target, the beams simply vanished. What happened? Rex demanded, stepping forward. Report. Before anyone could answer, the space around Mars seemed to shimmer. Hundreds of previously invisible defense platforms emerged from perfect optical camouflage, surrounding the Imperial fleet in a 3-dimensional web of weapons. Impossible, Rex whispered. Our scans showed nothing. A communication channel opened automatically on all Imperial frequencies. Admiral Green's voice filled the bridge, sounding tired rather than triumphant. I told you to watch the historical records, Lord Rex, he said. If you had, you'd have learned about something humans call maskerovka, the art of military deception. We've had centuries to perfect it. The defense platforms fired, not the expected energy weapons, but something different. Waves of invisible force swept through space, and half of Rex's fleet simply shut down, their advanced systems going completely dark. Electromagnetic pulse weapons, Green explained. We developed those before we even reached space. Crude versions, yes, but we've had a long time to refine the concept. Rex watched in horror as 3 of his mighty cruisers drifted helplessly in space, their crews scrambling to restore power. This is an act of war, he shouted. No, Green replied calmly. This is a demonstration. If we wanted war, your ships would be debris by now. Those EMPs were calibrated to be temporary. Your ships will regain power in about an hour. On the tactical display, Rex saw more ships appearing, not around Mars, but behind his fleet. Human vessels, emerging from what his sensors insisted was empty space. Stealth technology, Green continued. We developed that out of pure paranoia, centuries before we knew aliens existed. We hid our ships from ourselves before we ever thought about hiding them from you. The human ships made no aggressive moves. They simply sat there, weapons ready but not targeting anything. A clear message. We could have attacked from behind, but we chose not to. Listen carefully, Green said. Your ships will recover soon. When they do, you have 2 choices. Either leave this system and begin serious diplomatic talks about peaceful coexistence, or, he paused, or find out what other surprises a species that spent thousands of years preparing for apocalyptic war has waiting. Rex stared at the tactical display, his mind racing. The humans had hidden an entire defense fleet around Mars. How many other secrets were they keeping? What other weapons had their paranoid minds conceived over the centuries? One more thing, Green added. That mining colony you targeted. It was evacuated yesterday. We knew you'd choose it. It was the most obvious target. Remember that, Lord Rex. Humans don't just prepare for war. We prepare for exactly how our enemies will wage it. As his ships floated powerless in space, Lord Rex finally understood the truth behind Green's warning. The Empire had spent millennia perfecting the art of war against opponents who never saw them coming. But now they faced an enemy who had spent even longer preparing for enemies they hadn't even met yet. Your ships will regain power soon, Green said finally. Choose wisely what you do with it. The Imperial Palace on Capital World had never seen such chaos. Emergency meetings filled every chamber as reports flooded in from across Empire space. Lord Rex stood before the High Council, his usual confidence shattered as he delivered the news that would change the Empire forever. They're everywhere, he said, his voice hoarse. The humans. They've been inside our territory for decades. The High Council chamber's holographic display showed a map of Empire space. One by one, red dots began appearing, spreading like a virus across the three-dimensional star chart. Each dot represented a discovered human installation. Impossible, the first speaker declared. Our border patrols were being watched, Rex interrupted. The humans had stealth observation posts monitoring our patrol routes. They knew our blind spots, used them, hid in them. A new image appeared. An asteroid mining operation in the Empire's richest resource sector. The Imperial engineers had discovered that half the automated mining ships weren't Imperial at all. They were human-built copies, gathering intel while they worked. How long? Another council member demanded. Rex activated a data crystal, and Admiral Green's face appeared in the center of the chamber. This was a recording from their last meeting, after the Mars incident. 50 years, Green's image said calmly. Since we first detected your communications, we've been preparing, learning, building. You thought Earth was an isolated world on the edge of your space. You never wondered why we seemed so calm about being alone in the galaxy. The recording showed more images. Human bases hidden inside dead moons, observation posts disguised as space debris, small fleets concealed in nebulas, watching Imperial shipping lanes. Your empire expands like a wave, Green continued, always pushing outward, absorbing new species. But you never look behind that wave. Never guard your back. Why would you? Every species you've encountered has been right where you found them, waiting to be conquered. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Empire had thought they were studying humanity, deciding how best to absorb them. But humans had been studying the Empire first, learning their weaknesses, preparing countermeasures. We have found human monitoring devices in our shipyards, Rex reported heavily. Their sensors have mapped our defense grids. They even have detailed scans of this very palace. How? The first speaker whispered. Our security is designed to detect known threats, Rex said. The humans, they think differently. They built their observation systems using combinations of technologies we never thought to look for. Simple things made dangerous by creative thinking. The hologram shifted to show a captured human stealth probe. It used no advanced cloaking technology. Instead, it bent light using principles the Empire had dismissed as too primitive for modern warfare. It powered itself through a combination of solar collection and ambient energy gathering. Too low-tech for Imperial sensors to notice. We found this hidden in plain sight, Rex explained. Attached to the hull of my own flagship. It watched everything we did, recorded every conversation. And we never saw it because we were looking for the wrong things. Green's recording spoke again. Your empire judges strength by the advancement of technology. Humans judge it by effectiveness. You look for the most sophisticated solution. We look for the one that works. The first speaker stood, his ceremonial robes rustling in the tense silence. Can we attack? Destroy their hidden bases? Rex laughed bitterly. The bases we found. They're decoys. Admiral Green told me himself. For every installation we discover, they have 3 more we haven't found. And the ones we have found, he shuddered, they're rigged with something the humans call dead man switches. If we attack them, they'll trigger automated responses throughout our territory. What do they want? Someone asked. The recording of Green provided the answer. The same thing we've always wanted. To be left alone. To live in peace. But we've learned through bitter history that the only way to have peace, he paused meaningfully, is to be so well prepared for war that no one dares to start one. The Empire launched its grand offensive exactly 1 week after the High Council's emergency meeting. 500 warships, the largest fleet ever assembled, jumped into Earth's solar system. Lord Rex watched from the bridge of his new flagship, the Imperial Judgment, as his forces spread out in textbook attack formation. Let's see how their preparation handles overwhelming force, he said, trying to sound confident. All ships begin the advance. The Imperial fleet moved forward like a massive wall of metal and energy, their formation perfect after thousands of years of military tradition. Nobody spoke on the bridge. They all waited for the humans to reveal their defenses, their hidden weapons, their secret technologies. Nothing happened. Sensor report, Rex demanded. No human ships detected, my lord, his officer replied. No defense platforms. No weapon signatures. Nothing. Rex felt his confidence growing. Perhaps they had overestimated the humans after all. The fleet pressed forward, passing Mars orbit. Still nothing. Then his tactical officer shouted, "Energy spike. It's..." The space between Mars and Jupiter lit up like a new sun. When the light faded, 1/3 of the Imperial fleet had vanished. Not destroyed, just gone. What happened? Rex demanded. Where are my ships? A familiar voice came over the command channel. Admiral Green. Your missing ships are fine, Lord Rex. We've temporarily relocated them to a holding area near Pluto. A little technology we developed after studying your faster-than-light drives. Rex stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The humans had found a way to hijack the Empire's own FTL technology and use it against them. Formation beta, he ordered. Close ranks. Don't let them. More ships disappeared, this time from the rear of his fleet. Then the sides. The humans were picking his force apart piece by piece, using the Empire's own technology in ways its inventors had never imagined. You rely too much on formation, Green's voice said calmly. Another lesson from our history, something we learned from a man named Alexander the Great, divide and conquer. The remaining Imperial ships tried to regroup, but now they faced a new threat. Thousands of small objects appeared on their sensors, each barely larger than a human fighter craft. They moved in chaotic patterns, making targeting impossible. Drone swarms, Green explained. We developed those for fighting in our own atmosphere. Had centuries to perfect them. Amazing how well they work in space. The drones didn't fire weapons. Instead, they attached themselves to Imperial ships, overriding control systems and shutting down weapons. Rex watched helplessly as his mighty fleet was reduced to floating hulks by machines smaller than his ship's escape pods. This is impossible, he whispered. Your technology shouldn't be able to. You still don't understand, Green interrupted. We don't rely on having better technology. We focus on using what we have more effectively. Your empire builds better ships every year. Humanity builds better tactics every day. As if to prove his point, the space around the remaining Imperial ships suddenly filled with human vessels. They had been there all along, hiding in plain sight using simple heat sinks and light-absorbing materials, technologies the Empire had abandoned centuries ago as too primitive. Your ships are more advanced than ours, Green admitted. Your weapons are more powerful. Your shields are stronger. But you fight the same way every time. You haven't had to adapt or improvise in thousands of years. The human ships moved with unpredictable precision, using maneuvers that broke every rule of Imperial naval doctrine. They seemed to anticipate every countermove, every tactic. "We studied your battle recordings," Green continued. "Every conquest, every victory. We learned how you fight. Then we designed ways to counter each strategy. While you were perfecting your technology, we were perfecting the art of war itself." Rex looked at his tactical display. Of his mighty fleet of 500 ships, barely 50 remained under Imperial control. Not one had been destroyed. The humans had simply rendered them helpless, using techniques and technologies that the Empire had dismissed as obsolete generations ago. "A final lesson from human history," Green said. "Sometimes the most dangerous enemy isn't the one with the biggest weapons. It's the one who knows how to use simple tools in unexpected ways." The Imperial High Council chamber had lost its usual grandeur. Emergency lights cast harsh shadows across worried faces as reports of defeats poured in from across Empire space. Lord Rex stood before the Council again, but this time as a messenger of disaster. "They're using our own trade routes against us," he reported, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "Human ships appear from nowhere, strike our supply lines, and vanish before we can respond. 50 major shipping hubs have gone dark in the past week alone." The first speaker slumped in his ornate chair. How are they moving so freely through our territory?" Rex activated a hologram showing a captured human stealth ship. "They hide in our merchant traffic. Their vessels can change appearance like creatures from Earth's oceans. Chameleons, they call them. They mimic the sensor signatures of ordinary cargo ships until they're ready to strike. Surely our military vessels can catch them," another council member protested. "We've lost contact with the 7th and 3rd fleets," Rex replied grimly. "Not destroyed. They're just gone. The humans are using their transport technology to move our ships to random locations across the Empire. Our naval forces spend more time trying to regroup than fighting." The tactical display showed the Empire's territory, once a proud expanse of unified space. Now it looked like a broken web, with huge sections cut off from each other. The humans hadn't conquered any Imperial worlds. They had simply made it impossible for the Empire to govern them. "The economic damage is severe," the Commerce Minister added. "Our member worlds are losing faith in our ability to protect trade. Some are already talking about dealing directly with the humans for protection." Rex nodded. "The humans offer immediate restoration of trade to any world that declares neutrality in this conflict. They're not trying to destroy our empire. They're encouraging it to fall apart on its own." A new alert flashed on the main display. The council members watched in shock as another battle group disappeared from the map, relocated by human FTL hijackers to some distant corner of space. "Do we even know their full military strength?" the first speaker asked. "No," Rex admitted. "Every time we think we've identified their main fleet, it turns out to be a decoy. They're using old mining ships converted to look like warships, drone-operated vessels that appear to be manned, and holographic projections that our sensors can't distinguish from real ships." He brought up footage from their latest defeat. Imperial ships fired their advanced weapons at targets that vanished like smoke, while actual human vessels struck from unexpected angles. The Empire's mighty fleets were being exhausted chasing shadows. Their Admiral Green sent another message. Rex added quietly. He said that everything they're doing, all these tactics, they learned them from fighting themselves. Guerrilla warfare, they call it. The art of the weak defeating the strong. But they're not weak. The first speaker burst out. "That's his point," Rex replied. "They developed these tactics when they were weak, fighting against their own people. Then they spent centuries refining them, preparing to use them against anyone who might threaten them. We're not fighting a traditional military. We're fighting an entire species that has turned survival into an art form." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Empire had spent thousands of years being the strongest force in known space. They had forgotten how to fight enemies who didn't play by their rules. There's more, Rex said heavily. Our intelligence suggests that we've only faced a fraction of their true capabilities. They're holding back, showing us just enough to prove their point. Admiral Green calls it proportional response. What are our options? The first speaker asked, his voice barely a whisper. Rex looked at the broken map of their territory, at the reports of scattered fleets and severed supply lines, at the growing list of worlds choosing neutrality over imperial protection. We can keep fighting, he said. Keep watching our empire fragment as they turn our own tactics and technology against us. Or, he paused, the words bitter in his mouth. We can admit that for the first time in imperial history, we found a species that was ready for us before we were ready for them. The signing ceremony took place on neutral ground, a space station orbiting Jupiter's moon Europa. Gone were the Empire's usual displays of power and wealth. Instead, the station's main chamber was stark and simple, with a single table holding the peace documents. Admiral Green sat on one side, wearing his plain black uniform. Lord Rex faced him from the other side, his once elaborate uniform now bearing only his rank insignia. Both men looked tired, but their eyes were clear and focused. Before we sign, Rex said quietly, I must know, how much of your true capability did we actually see? Green's expression remained neutral. Do you really want to know? Yes. Rex leaned forward. Not for military intelligence, for understanding, so we never make this mistake again. Green nodded slowly. 10%, maybe less. Those bases you found. Decoys. Our real production facilities are hidden in dimensional pockets. Technology we developed after studying your FTL drives. The ships you faced. Outdated models we were planning to retire. Rex closed his eyes, letting the truth sink in. And the reason you held back? The same reason we tried to warn you in the first place. Green replied. We don't want war. We never did. Humanity learned long ago that total victory often breeds future conflicts. Better to show enough strength to prove your point, but leave your opponent their dignity. The document between them was surprisingly simple. The Empire would maintain its existing territory, but Earth and its colonies would be recognized as an independent power. More importantly, any world within imperial space would have the right to choose independence or continued imperial rule. Your empire won't collapse, Green explained. Some worlds will stay with you out of loyalty, others out of practical necessity, but they'll stay because they choose to, not because they fear you. Rex picked up the pen, an ancient Earth instrument chosen deliberately for this historic moment. You could have destroyed us, torn our empire apart completely, and then spent centuries watching our backs, waiting for revenge, Green said. We've read enough of our own history to know how that ends. Better to have a stable neighbor than a defeated enemy. As Rex signed his name, a small alert chimed on his computer pad. His eyes widened as he read the message. Your hidden forces, he said. They're withdrawing. Green nodded, signing his own name to the treaty. Already done. As a show of good faith, we began pulling our covered forces out of imperial space the moment you agreed to peace talks. Your sensors can verify, though I suggest scanning for primitive technology this time. You might be surprised what you find when you stop looking only for advanced signatures. The treaty signed, both men stood. But Rex had one final question. Your warnings, at the beginning. The history lessons. The demonstrations of force. You planned it all, didn't you? Even our attack on Mars. Green smiled slightly. We've had 50 years to study how your empire thinks, Lord Rex. We knew you wouldn't take our warnings seriously without proof. So yes, we planned for your responses. Set up situations where you'd learn what you needed to learn, without too many lives being lost. You treated war like a teaching exercise, Rex said, understanding finally dawning. Because that's what humanity learned through centuries of conflict, Green replied. The best victory isn't destroying your enemy. It's making them understand why they shouldn't have fought you in the first place. As they walked out of the chamber, The gas giant Jupiter filled the station's viewing window. Its great red storm raged on, as it had for centuries, beautiful, powerful, and dangerous to those who didn't respect it. "One last thing," Green said, pausing at the door. "Remember what I said about us only using outdated ships and technology in this conflict?" Rex nodded. "That was a warning, too," Green said softly. "Not a threat, but a reminder. Humanity will keep preparing, keep improving, keep expecting the worst while hoping for the best. It's what we do. It's what's kept us alive." "I understand," Rex replied. And for the first time since meeting humans, he truly did. The peace treaty marked not just the end of a conflict, but the beginning of something unprecedented. An empire that had learned to respect another power not through defeat, but through understanding. And perhaps more importantly, it marked the moment when humanity proved that centuries of paranoid preparation could achieve peace without requiring total war.